ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। We'll chant chapter 14 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, verses 16 to 20.
कर्मणः सुकृतस्याहुः सात्विकं निर्मलं फलं रजसस्तु फलं दुःखम् अज्ञानं तमसः फलं सत्त्वात् संजायते ज्ञानं रजसो लोभ एव च प्रमादमोहौ तमसः भवतो ज्ञानमेव च ऊर्ध्वं गच्छन्ति सत्त्वस्ताः मध्ये तिष्ठन्ति राजसाः जघन्यगुणवृत्तिस्ताः अधो गच्छन्ति तामसाः नान्यं गुणेभ्यः कर्तारं यदा दृष्टानुपश्यति गुणेभ्यश्च परं वेत्ति मद्भावं सोऽधिगच्छति गुणानेतानतीत्यत्रि देहि देहसमुद्भवान् जन्म मृत्युजरा दुःखैः विमुक्तो मृतमश्नुते.
We have so far completed up to shloka number 15 of this chapter. This chapter is entitled as Gunatraya Vibhaga Yogaha, the yoga of distinction of the three gunas. And we have covered up to 15 shlokas. The first two topics we have already covered, and we are in the third topic now. The first topic is realizing Brahman, sages transcend creation and dissolution from verses 1 to 4, where Sri Krishna said, I shall declare this knowledge once again. Knowing this, the sages had gone beyond creation and dissolution. And then he talked about the theory of creation in verse number 3 and 4. And then from 5 to 13, he talked about the nature of Satva, Rajas and Tamas, the gunas, how they bind the beings. The nature of Satva is balanced, composed mind. Tamas is passionate, greedy, result-oriented mind. And Tamas is lazy, lethargic, heedless to consequence kind of a mind. Then he said, how do they bind you? He said, Satva binds you to happiness and knowledge, Rajas to action, and Tamas to heedlessness, ignorance. And what are the consequential effects of Satva, Rajas, Tamas is the topic that we are in now from 14 to 18. In 14 and 15, he talked about what happens if a person dies when Satwa predominates. What happens when a person dies when Rajas predominates and Tamas predominates? He talked about in the 15th shloka. So, we said you continue from where you left. If you died with Satwa predominating, none of your efforts will go waste. From, that vasanas with which you die, accordingly, you will be given another environment in the next Janma. So, you will be given a Sattvic environment which is conducive for spiritual evolution. So, nothing will go waste because end of the day, the whole idea is nature will help you to exhaust your vasanas. As per your thoughts, you are getting the environment. So therefore, if a person dies with sattva predominating, he will be born in spotless worlds. Spotless world meaning nirmala, meaning a very conducive, pure environment for spiritual evolution. People around, also the place, everything will be conducive for spiritual evolution. If a person dies with rajas predominating, and what kind of environment will he get? He says action-oriented environment. Because that person's vasanas are such that he needs to be doing a lot of action. And when a person dies in tamas, what kind of environment will he get? He will get that kind of environment in which, he will be in the wombs of senselessness. Wombs of senseless in the sense, a person who dies with tamas predominating can even be born as animal. This is where I said a person having been born as a human being now, practically speaking, it's almost impossible to be born as an animal. But theoretically, you can't eliminate that possibility. If you inculcate too many tamasic vasanas, then the nature has to give you an environment which could be of the body of an animal, theoretically. That's why he says you can be born in the wombs of senseless. You can be born as an animal also. It's possible. That's what he says. So therefore, we have to be very careful that as much as possible when we are in this body, in human embodiment, try to reduce tamas, manage rajas, and reduce it further if possible, and keep on increasing sattva. So that's why I said life management is all about guna management. So now he is talking about in the 16, 17, 18, he concludes this discussion. Because so far what has been the discussion, he has been talking about the nature of the gunas, how they bind and all that. Now he is talking about the consequential effects of sattva, rajas and tamas. What are the fruits of rajas, tamas and sattva? Let's get on to shloka number 16.
कर्मणः सुकृतस्याहुः सात्विकं निर्मलं फलं रजसस्तु फलं दुःखम् अज्ञानं तमसः फलम्.
The fruit of good action, they say, is satvika, pure. Karmana sukrutasya ahuhu satvikam nirmalam phalam. The fruit of good action, sukrutasya karmanaha, good action, ahuhu, they say, is said as what? Satvikam nirmalam phalam. Nirmala means pure, without mala, vasana-less state. Malam is desire, vasanas. So satvikam nirmalam phalam. The fruit is nirmalam. So nirmala means vasanaless. Vasanaless means pure sattva. Right? So karmana sukrutasyahuhu satvikam nirmalam phalam. The fruit of good action, they say, is satvika, pure. While the fruit of rajas, rajasastu phalam dukkham. The fruit of rajas is dukkham, sorrow. The fruit of tamas is ignorance. Ajnanam tamasa phalam. Now, it's very interesting. We discussed this when we did shloka number 11, 12 and 13. Where he says, in 12 and 13, what does he say? When the rajas is predominating over sattva and tamas, greed, activity, undertaking of works, unrest, longing, these arise when rajas predominates over Bharat. He said this in 12. And then in 13 he says, darkness, inertness, heedlessness, and also delusion. These arise when tamas predominates. So when rajas predominates, this arises. When tamas predominates, this arises. So he should naturally have said, when sattva predominates, what arises? But he doesn't say that in verse number 11. He says, when the light of wisdom streams forth through all the gates in the body, meaning the body, mind, and intellect, then it may be known that sattva indeed is predominant. Right? He put the thing in a reverse order. It's not that sattva is going to produce something. When you manage tamas and rajas through your intellect, then the sattva emerges. I already discussed this with you in the beginning. Tamas is being in stagnant condition. Rajas is being in constant activity. Sattva is the balance of the body. You understand? So, therefore, what is sattva? It is the balance. So, when you, with your intellect, to whatever extent you have sattva, with your intellect, when you control your tamas and rajas, right, you will have clarity of thought. That is what he means by saying light of wisdom. So it's not that sattva produces light of wisdom. The moment the malam, the dirt, which is ignorance and restlessness, is removed, avarana and vikshepa, the ignorance and agitations are removed, what remains is clarity. You understand? That is why he said this way in 11, 12 and 13. Now the same kind of thing he mentions in 16 also. He says the fruit of action, they say, is sattvika. He doesn't say sattvika's result is this. You understand? So the fruit of good action, what is bad action then? Bad action is going with your desires, selfishly functioning. So if you exercise your self-effort with your intellect and do not go by your desires, work for a higher common cause, right? Dissolving your ego, meaning with arpana bhav, then the fact that you are not creating more vasanas and exhausting the existing vasanas. See what happens when you function in karma yoga. You will exhaust the existing vasanas and you will not produce further vasanas. Right? So that is why he says satvikam nirmalam. So what will happen is the malam will reduce. And when the malam reduces, the truth emerges. That's why we say it is not that you have to attain the self. There is no such thing as attainment of self-realization. You are already the self. This is what Vedanta says. You are already the self. It is covered by ignorance, and out of ignorance, a sense of individuality has been imagined, and the individuality is feeling a sense of limitation, and to deal with that limitation, the mind is running towards the world, courting the objects and beings of the world, and creating more and more vasanas, malam, which is covering the truth more and more. Now, if we do good action, that is karma yoga, you understand, with your intellect, when you control your desires and do the actions for a higher goal, dedicating it for a larger purpose, then what will happen? You won't create further vasanas, and you will also be exhausting the existing vasanas. And when vasanas reduce, what will increase? Sattva. So that's why he says the fruit of good action is sattva. And when you come to 100% sattva, 100% sattva alone cannot exist. Total balance means what? There is no rajas, no tamas at all. So then what will that be? Truth revealing itself. The knowledge of self reveals itself. The cause and effect culminates there. You understand? So therefore he says, when the, the fruit, when you do the good action, the fruit of that good action is sattva, which is reduction of vasanas, nirmalam. And that is how he puts it here. He doesn't put it the other way. In fact, when you come to 70th shloka, he'll put it that way. The fruit of rajas is sorrow. Sorry, here itself is mentioned. The fruit of rajas is sorrow and the fruit of tamas is ignorance. Isn't it? When you see here, he says, Karmana sukritasyahuhu satvikam nirmalam phalam. Reverse order is put. And then he says, rajasastu phalam dukkam. What is rajas? Desire-ridden actions. Isn't it? Selfish action. And when you do desire-ridden action, selfish action, what will be the result? Dukkha. And when he comes to tamas, he says, the fruit of tamas is continuing to be in deeper ignorance. It deludes you furthermore. A tamasic person who goes on doing activity with ignorance only drives himself into deeper darkness. Therefore, he says, the phalam, ajnanam tamasap phalam. The source of tamas is ajnanam, and it will produce more ajnanam. This is the problem. So the sattvic fellow is a sattvic guna is a result of managing tamas and rajas, doing the right action. You understand? Managing tamas and rajas with your intellect and doing the right action will make the sattva emerge more and more. And when you go to 100% sattva, sattva alone cannot exist without tamas and rajas. Then the self reveals itself, where the cause and effect culminates, terminates. Cause and effect, the moment you say, it is only with reference to the world. When all the vasanas are exhausted, where the world is, there is no world, there is no cause and effect there. So that is what he is trying to say in this shloka. So, in short, what he wants to say is, use your buddhi, manage your tamas and rajas, exhaust the vasanas, and reveal the truth from within. This is the consequential effect of managing tamas and rajas and increasing sattva. To increase sattva, ultimately you can realize the self. Because what will sattva give you? He explains that in the next shloka.
सत्त्वात् सञ्जायते ज्ञानं रजसो लोभ एव च प्रमादमोहौ तमसः भवतो ज्ञानमेव च.
From sattva arises knowledge, and from rajas, greed. From tamas, heedlessness and delusion, and also ignorance. Now, it's very interesting. In the previous shloka, he said, the fruit of good action is sattva. Now he directly says, from sattva arises knowledge. Right? Now, I mentioned this to you. When you read the commentary of Swamiji, you must see the translation. Now, in the translation, if you see, from sattva arises knowledge. The word knowledge is not capital K, it is small k. I told you, Swamiji uses this method. If he is talking about Atma, the self, then he will be using the word knowledge with capital K. You understand? So when he says from sattva arises knowledge with small k, not capital K, what knowledge is he talking about? Knowledge of the world. You understand? When you control rajas and tamas with your intellect, as a result, sattva increases. When sattva increases, you develop more and more clarity with reference to the nature of the world, how the world behaves, how people behave. Everything you begin to understand more and more. That's what he's saying. You understand what is the real mission of life. Is the real mission of life is acquiring more and more and enjoying more and more in this world? Or is the real mission of life is to reduce vasanas and realize the self? That knowledge you have. You understand? You will understand that this world is a constantly changing phenomenon. And in this, you cannot find that happiness. So, only for transactional purpose, you need to be in this world. All this you understand. So, therefore, what he's saying here is, when from Satva arises knowledge, what knowledge is he talking about? He's talking about the knowledge of the world, the terrestrial world. You understand what is the nature of this terrestrial world, how it is relative, how it is mithya, not satya. All that you understand. You develop more and more clarity with reference to your goal. Is dharma, artha, kama my goal, or moksha my goal? What should be my goal? You understand? When you are dominated by rajas, you will think artha, kama is my goal. I need to get more and more of this worldly acquisition and enjoyment. So that is what he says. From rajas, greed arises. And from tamas, heedlessness and delusion, also ignorance. When you are in deep tamas, you can't see anything beyond indulgence. You understand? Deep indulgence, even at the cost of certain consequences later on. Because you first of all, don't know at that time that so and so consequences will be there. Such and such consequences will be there. You will not know. Because you are in deep tamas. Isn't it? We have already discussed the example. You are smoking. What are you doing? You are actually, for a very, very paltry pleasure, you are damaging your system. What is that act? It is heedlessness. You understand? That heedlessness is tamas. It will only end up in total delusion and ignorance. It will only perpetuate more and more heedlessness, delusion, and ignorance. That's what he says. From Satva arises knowledge. Doesn't mean that Satva will produce knowledge. From Satva arises knowledge means the fact that you have managed tamas and rajas, you develop clarity of this world, how to function. In fact, Swamiji always gives this example in the class. Even before the sun has fully risen, morning, 6 o'clock, sun has not fully risen. It's not 12 yet. You can switch off your lights. Street lights are all switched off. You can move around without any problem. So even little bit of tamas and rajas, if we can eliminate from our system, we will develop much more clarity in the world. For handling things in this world, you don't have to have 100% sattva. Even relative strengthening of the buddhi and managing your tamas and rajas, you will be able to deal with this world. Just little bit of, sunrise is enough. Not too much of sunrise is required.
Are eliminating tamas out of our life, then it is situation based. Able to handle it, given the tamas. A similar situation like where, if I talk about myself, I'm able to handle sometime the situation that maybe the tamas is more, and why? Because the clarity is not much. Sometimes I feel that clarity.
Yeah, see, Sangeeta here is asking a question. She's in fact not asking a question, she's kind of presenting her case. She says that, sometimes I'm able to handle tamas, sometimes I'm not able to. It is to do with the strength of your intellect. Right? So, and also the situation. What kind of tamasic situation are you dealing with? Right? So, for example, early hours of the day, when whatever amount of sattva you have, that will be high in the morning. You understand? So in the morning, even if what do you call very very uh, how would you put it, a gambler who is regularly gambling, or an alcoholic who drinks almost every day, if you offer alcohol in the morning, he has little sattva to say no, right? But the same fellow succumbs to that in the evening, because in him also tamas is predominating. Are you with me? So depending on the strength of your intellect and the environment, that you succumb or you don't succumb. That is why we need to constantly be in the program of developing our intellect. It's a constant struggle, right? So the different areas of tamas are there. So you may deal with one easily, another one you may fall in. You understand? One is the strength of the intellect. Other is that intellect should be available. In the morning, it is available. Evening, it's not available. Because in the morning, externally also, sattva is predominating. Internally, externally also, the environment is very sattvic. Internally also, sattva is predominating. So the intellect is available. Evening, that intellect, to whatever extent you have the strength, it's not available. So to keep the intellect available throughout, we do the exercise of introspection. Introspection is an exercise which you do just before going to bed at night, right? And we say that that exercise should not be more than 3 to 5 minutes. Maximum 5 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes. So you be in a seated position, right? Comfortable sitting position. Then with your eyes half closed. You can lie down and do, but the possibility is that you may go off to sleep. So we say be seated, right? And if you completely close your eyes, again you may fall off to sleep. So with your eyes half closed, you go through the day's activity from the time you woke up till the time you have sit down to do introspection, one after another, right? Without analyzing. We are not doing analysis there. We are just supposed to go through. And what happens? We're going through certain sequences. One or two you may forget. It's okay, it doesn't matter. And some you may say, this happened today. That fellow said something. I got provoked. I retaliated. I used certain words. That time don't say, I should have not used and all that. Just say, just go through. He provoked me. I retaliated. I used certain abusive words. And I got agitated. Just being aware. Then you go to the next experience, next experience, next experience. Like that every day. So another day somebody else provoked you. You got agitated. You retaliated. Another day the same thing happened. So like that when you go through on a daily basis, you are watching. You are distancing yourself and you are watching. So the awareness is increasing, strengthening. So there will come a time when somebody is provoking and inside you, you're getting angry, you're getting worked up. At the same time, simultaneously, you're becoming aware. Intellect becomes available during the action. Be with me. So that's why we emphasize on this exercise of introspection every night before going to bed. Now, morning you do the study reflection. Then you may sit and after your study reflection, you may sit and do certain analysis of certain things. It is required. Morning you do the analysis. Night you do the introspection. The study, reflection and analysis will strengthen your intellect. right? And throughout the day, with whatever level of intellect you've developed, you use it for your daily activities regulation, for you to do karma yoga. And then bhakti yoga. Then you come to, again, at night, introspection with whatever disciplines you need to follow, dinachara. Then slowly, slowly you'll be strengthening the intellect, as well as you'll be making that whatever level of intellect you have available during action. Is that okay? So that way you will be able to deal with whether it is rajas or tamas. Otherwise you will give in. You strengthen the intellect in the morning, but it's not available during highly rajasic or tamasic situation. Are you with me? Is it okay? So, coming back to this shloka that we were in, he says, from Satva arises knowledge. Satva doesn't produce the knowledge of the self. Please understand that. It's not that you have to come to Satva and then the Satva will produce the knowledge of the self. It is not that you have to. That is why I said he is not putting the knowledge with, he is not written the word knowledge with capital K. If it was Atma or the self knowledge, he would have put it in capital K in Swamiji's translation. So he very clearly says, from Satva arises knowledge. Knowledge of what? The world. How to deal with it. The clarity. What are the goals? What are my actions? What I should do? What I should not do? All this becomes clear. When you are in Rajas, you will be totally confused. When you are in Tamas, you are in complete ignorance. All obligatory duties, you will give it up. And as a result, you will have to go through consequences because you are heedless. As a tamasic person, this is what happens to you, isn't it? A rajasic person is what? Full of greed. Right? He is only interested in acquiring. So he thinks acquisition is his obligatory duty. And then enjoying what has been acquired is his obligatory duty. And he thinks enjoyment is in acquisition. That's what he thinks. He thinks enjoyment is in the result. He doesn't understand that enjoyment is in the action. Whereas Sattvic person understands this, that the enjoyment is in action, not in the result. Result is a byproduct. Are you with me? So this is what he says. From Sattva arises knowledge. From Rajas, greed. From Tamas arises heedlessness. Because this fellow is completely ignorant. So what will he do? Heedlessly he will avoid obligatory duties. Taking care of his health, both physical and mental, all that. And be in total delusion. And then ignorance. See, in fact, it's very, very interesting. In the book, Fall of the Human Intellect, Swamiji analyzes this. What is the difference between freedom and bondage? What is freedom? What is bondage? What is health? What is ill health? What is this? What is rich? What is poverty? Who is rich? Who is poor? All that he analyzes. That clarity is not there. Rajasic person may think that the one who has more wealth is rich. Right? Number of wealth, amount of wealth equals rich. The Sattvic person understands that when the number of desires are less than the assets, you are wealthy. So it doesn't matter how much assets you have. Isn't it? So therefore, clarity from Sattva arises knowledge when he says that clarity. And then from Rajas arises greed. Because this fellow thinks like this, he goes on acquiring restlessly. And from tamas arises heedlessness, meaning he'll be so deluded that he will even avoid doing his obligated duty. See, there are people who go and take loan and then avoid paying the due every month, knowingly. देख लेता हूँ, मैनेज कर लेता हूँ बाद में, isn't it? Because if you don't pay the loan, then what happens? The interest is added to it, and to the interest, again interest is added, again interest is added. So at some point in time, the bank is going to talk to you, or you have to talk to the bank, isn't it? Then what do you think? I'll manage. I'll bribe this fellow, I'll talk to him, I'll convince him, I'll say, thoda sa, push it further. Ye karo, wo karo. Like this, they think like this. You understand? That is what he's saying. Tamas arises heedlessness. From tamas arises heedlessness and delusion and also ignorance. Ignorance is not an excuse. You will be punished for it. Only innocence will be, you will escape if you have innocence. But if you have ignorance, you cannot escape. So, very nicely he says, from Satva arises knowledge, and from Tamas, greed. Sorry, from Rajas, greed, and from Tamas arises heedlessness and delusion and also ignorance. Ignorance means, they say no, ignorance is bliss. He will be in total bliss. When everybody has gone to work and come back, this fellow will wake up and then laugh at them. You understand? Oh, I went to work. I just sit down and enjoy. You understand? So that is ignorance. In that kind of a bliss, which is detrimental to oneself. That kind of a ignorance the person will be in when tamas arises. Next shloka. With this topic ends. Topic from 14 to 18. Consequential effects of Sattva and Rajas.
ऊर्ध्वं गच्छन्ति सत्त्वस्ताः मध्ये तिष्ठन्ति राजसाः जघन्यगुणवृत्तिस्ताः अधो गच्छन्ति तामसाः.
Those established in Sattva move upwards. The Rajasic remain in the middle. The Tamasika flow following the course of the lowest guna quality go downwards. Urdhvam gachanti sattvastaha. Urdhvam means upwards. Gachanti means going. Sattvic people move upwards, Jesus. Madhye tishtanti rajasaha. Rajasic people remain in the middle. Chaganya guna vrittistaha ado gachanti tamasaha. When he talks about tamas, he puts little more adjectives. He says, the tamasika following the course of the lowest guna. He says it's the lowest of all the gunas. Following that lowest of the gunas, what happens to them? They go downwards. Now this upwards, downwards and middle and all that, what? Is it spatially he's talking about? He's not talking about it spatially. What is he talking about? Spiritual evolution. And when we say spiritual evolution, reduction of vasanas. Remember, evolution is equal to reduction of vasanas. Right? And stagnation and devolution is equal to increase of vasanas. So, in spirituality, the mathematics is different. Arithmetic is different here. Isn't it? You go on adding, you become poor. Go on reducing, you become rich spiritually. We're talking about vasanas. You with me? So when you spiritually evolve, what are you doing? You are reducing your vasanas. But when you spiritually devolve, you are increasing your vasanas. Isn't it? As you increase your vasanas, you go away from the self. So now, what is this spiritual evolution that he's talking about then? As you reduce your vasanas, you move closer and closer to the self. Isn't it? As you reduce your vasanas, you move closer and closer to the Atma, the self. Now, when he says the Rajasic fellows remain in the middle, what are they doing? They are going on perpetuating more and more desires for the world. More and more desires for the world. And Tamasic fellows remaining in total tamas indulgence. Right? What is happening to them? They are devolving in the sense they can even go to the lower wombs, which we already discussed. They can even take the birth of an animal embodiment. It's possible theoretically. Therefore, Tamasic fellow devolves. Rajasic fellow stagnates. Sattvic fellow evolves. Spiritually, get closer and closer to the Atma. Finally, merge with Atma, Sattvic person. Move upwards. Upwards means towards the center. That's what it means. All of us are remaining in the periphery, isn't it? Whereas the Sattvic person moves closer and closer to the center. When you move closer and closer to the center, without you having any motive to influence the world, you will be influencing the world. As you move away from the self, you may have desire to influence, but you may not have that kind of influence over the world. But when you get closer and closer to the self, you will have tremendous influence over the world. But you will not have any motive to influence the world. You understand it? So, urdhvam gachanti satvastha, ye tishtanti rajasaha, ado gachanti tamasaha. Ado means falls down. A fellow's intellect evolves when he is in Satva. When he is in Rajas, the intellect remains confused. Understand? When in Tamas, the intellect is perverted. Things all wrong things to be correct. Attachment as love. Tamasic fellow understands attachment as love. Sattvic fellow will know what is love, what is attachment. Rajasic fellow is confused about love. He thinks love means there has to be expression. If there is no expression, it is not love. That is what he thinks. If there is no expression, there has to be the expression. That confusion is there. He stagnates. You understand? So, all of us in life will have to evolve or devolve or stagnate. Evolve. So, therefore, he says, you start managing your tamas and rajas. Otherwise, you will either stagnate or you will devolve. If a person is going on indulging, there are people like that. First thing in the morning, they wake up and they drink. Coffee? I'm talking about alcohol, not coffee. Right? They drink and then completely what? Chill. Arvind is saying chill. A fellow is not chill. He is in deep tamas. Some other loka he is. Wakes up, doesn't know where he is, again drinks. So the thing is completely dependent, isn't it? See, this tamasic fellow is completely dependent. The rajasic fellow is acting, but he's acting for himself. Selfishness. Whereas a sattvic person knows what is real action. We explained all these things in the third chapter, no? Parasparam bhavayantaha, he says. The devas have been there taking care of this world. So you also have to serve the devas, he says. Parasparam bhavayantaha. So we are, as individuals, we are part of this world and we are all interdependent. So you give oxygen, you take oxygen, you give out carbon dioxide. You take oxygen from the plants and give out carbon dioxide. They take the carbon dioxide, they give out oxygen, interdependent. So you have to be giving. But if you are doing action only to take, just for yourself all the time, right? Then what kind of results you will be getting? You will be stagnating. You will be increasing more and more vasanas. You will be remaining in insecurity. How much ever you get. See, insecurity and security has got nothing to do with how much you have. Insecurity and security has to do with what you are. Please understand this. Isn't it? We think insecurity and security is to do with how much I have. Insecurity and security is to do with who am I? What we are. What is our inside? The gunas. A sattvic person with very little is very secure. Like in the book, in the poem, Village Preacher, Oliver Goldsmith says that village preacher, he equates him to a perfect human being, enlightened soul. He says with 40 pounds he was rich. He had only 40 pounds, but he was feeling very rich. You may have 40 trillion pounds and still feel very poor. It's got nothing to do with how much you have. It is to do with what you are inside. That is what it is. Arjuna had everything externally, isn't it? In today's condition, in today's context, if you have to talk about it, the best CV that you can ever get for your company. Straight away you will employ him. He went to the best of colleges in the world. Understand? And then he's worked in best of companies. Tremendous experience. And in those companies, he's achieved a lot. He has been the star performer of the month on a regular basis. Right? And as a result of it, he is achieved success externally with a lot of wealth at his disposal. All that you see is superb. Okay. But the inner state of mind is so weak, isn't it? That's why when he came on the battlefield, seeing all his relatives collapsed. Seeing all his relatives, he collapsed. So, he says, Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha. Sattvic person keeps on moving upward. Upward means inward, towards the self. Madhye tishtanti rajasa. A rajasic fellow seems to be going on acquiring, doing something, but end of the day when you calculate, he's there only. So that's why we say he is not growing, he's swelling. After so many things you've done, acquired. What are you born in the next Janma for? Again acting. Isn't it? You only increased your vasanas. Whereas a Sattvic fellow, what did he do? He or she reduced the vasanas. At the time of death, if you are dying with predominance of Sattva means what? Rajas and Tamas you have managed well. And you will get another environment. There again, by striving, you will increase. Keep moving towards with a lot more clarity. You need to have clarity about what is dharma, what is adharma, what is satya, what is mithya. What is my pravritti and nivritti? What am I supposed to do? What am I not supposed to do? You need to have clarity. What is my goal? What is not my goal? Now, these clarities, if they are there, you will evolve. Otherwise, you'll be doing all kinds of things, thinking that you're doing something. You're keeping yourself busy. Busy does not mean you are acting. People think if I'm busy, I'm very active. See, mind consumes time. And your mind is selfish, disturbed. It consumes. You take more time. It consumes time. When you have strong intellect controlling the mind and it is calm, it will take very little time to do an action. You'll be able to think properly and then do. So a fellow who is having strong intellect will be more organized, not busy. In cricket, no IPL is going on. No? If you see, yesterday's match, both the teams hit more than 200, 230. One fellow hit 243, another fellow is 236 something. Every ball almost the fellows are hitting 6 and 4. And if you see those shots, it is just sheer timing. The fellow who doesn't know how to play, he will hit. You see as if he is hitting with tremendous force. You think the ball must have gone and come to your house. But then it is caught very closely. It's just timing. So we think by keeping ourselves busy, we are growing. We are not growing. We've been only accumulating. We've been only swelling. Remaining with a lot more insecurity. The inside is weak. The outside has been plastered so much. That's what he's saying. The Rajasic fellow stagnates. The Tamasic fellow is worst. He devolves. Adogachanti tamasa. He falls down because he thinks all the right thing to be wrong. Love to be attachment. Attachment to be love. Having or taking as my right in relationship. Being possessive is the right thing in relationship. This is how the Tamasic fellow will think. As a result, what will happen? He will not enjoy that relationship. It may end up in divorce. Even if it doesn't end up in divorce, as far as he is concerned, that relationship is not there. It's just on paper. So, That is what he's saying. Adho gachanti tamasaha. The tamasic fellow devolves, falls. So then, obviously, he's already discussed that. If that fellow dies, then accordingly an environment has to be given to deal with his tamas for a while. So that when that is done, then he can come back. So that's why I said that devolution is also for evolution. If you remember, we discussed this when we talked about shloka number 14 and 15. If a person is being born in an animal embodiment, from one angle, if you see, it's a devolution. But another angle, it is evolution. The sense is given one particular embodiment to exhaust them so that he can get back. You understand? Let's conclude. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti.